Okay, hello. This is Mike, and I'm giving a proposal for implementation for cloud infrastructure for Bob and Jane Bakery. So without further ado, let's get started. Um, Bob and Jane Bakery is a small local bakery chain that is in Wisconsin, specifically Whitewater here, and we're looking to transition their network to the cloud and facilitate the use of infrastructure as a service and software as a service. They currently have an on-prem mail server, SAM, and several other software licenses that they've got. Um, their specific bakery, called Bakery Delights, has an on-premises server room as well that's located at the main store, and they have a mail server running at the physical server as on a physical server with the specifications, and then we have the Intel Xeon E5 2620V4, and they actually have three of these for their server that hosts about 50 mailboxes. They also have it for their SAM solution that they're running, as well as their file server. Of course, it has a range of different amounts of RAM and hard drive space, but what really matters is that this is already dated software that runs you about 2,500 bucks or 2,000 bucks for these servers, and you're going to have to replace these servers every 3 to 5 years. This is their current infrastructure right now. They only have fiber line, which is good. You know, they have fiber line that goes from their ISP to each branch. Down here is another branch as well. So that is all they've got to connect themselves to their other locations. And their HQ, they have that on-prem for the SAM mail and file server. So the executive summary, Bob and Jane's Bakery, also known as Bakery's Delights, is just Bob and Jane LLC. They're a growing local chain that's embarked on an ambitious digital transformation journey to migrate their operations to cloud-based environments. You know, they've seen the news with ransomware and stuff like that all over. They definitely feel like they need to make that strategic decision that's aimed at optimizing their costs and making themselves scalable in case they want to go further around Wisconsin or even go into other states like Iowa or Illinois. So my cloud offer and pitch, I would advise BJB LLC to transition to a full cloud environment to mitigate the expense on-premises expenditures that they'll have. Given that the bakery is small, I'd recommend a public cloud provider like AWS, Google Cloud Platform, or Microsoft Azure. In this example, I'll be using AWS for their infrastructure as a service. These platforms provide super scalable and secure infrastructure that's really cheap for them. They won't be charged for the stuff that they don't use, and AWS is by far the cheapest right now. Software as a service. The bakery can use cloud-based apps like QuickBooks, which they're not utilizing now. They're using old-style cash registers and pen and paper for accounting. And Slack, they're not utilizing Slack, which they should. And Toast POS for point-of-scale transactions and reservations, curbside pickup, etc. So I wanted to make this very clear on why I decided to do a full cloud operation rather than a hybrid or completely on-prem by looking at the cost of operation based on the current ongoing rates. So if we look at hardware acquisition and depreciation costs, on the lower end, I said they were about $2,000 per server, and at a minimum of $2,000 per server, that's $6,000 for the initial outlay. Plus the per year rotation of the servers that are going to be like 3 to 5 years with the annual depreciation of about $1,200. So what that means, you know, they're going to have to keep buying and updating their on-premises machines, and that's a lot of money to shell out for a bakery. Software licensing, and now it depends on what type of server that they have as well. You know, that can cost money to just use. It could be a service, a software service as well. But we're going to estimate it's going to be about $4,500. Maintenance and support costs, uh, assuming that they only have one IT professional that's getting kind of scammed at 60,000 a year. 15% of their time would definitely be dedicated to server maintenance, if not more. So that's about $9,000 a year, plus energy costs. I took the average energy cost that it is for Whitewater, Wisconsin. The internet network costs, I made it pretty low at $80 a month. and then space cost. So everything added up with depreciation, cost of ownership, software, energy, internet, all of, and plus the space is about $20,380. That's very, very expensive. Whereas if we look at cloud infrastructure cost of operations. Sure, we'll have a bunch of other licensing issues, and I don't want to go over time or bore you to death, but if we look at, we got Microsoft Exchange, Office 365. Now there's a bunch of different ways you can get the licenses for 365 to make them super cheap. 425 is going to be the cheapest one, so you utilize the Office suite. Amazon Simple Storage, super cheap. I also have alternatives like Google Drive for free. Amazon S3 Glacier, which is another option that they can use. AWS Service Catalog, so that they can use up to 50 products, which is $5 per product. So we'll just say that they use about 250 products total for 250 a month. If we assume that they use resources like buckets and things while they grow, it would be about $3.60 per year because they're not really expensive and people don't use that many when they're small. And then CloudWatch, data transferring, and then if you add up all of these costs, you'll get about $11,571 per year. And yes, I factored in the internet as well. And I reduced the cost that the IT professional would have to utilize on this cloud infrastructure just because um, my Amazon AWS, they can kind of hold your hand to help you set this up if you're going to be a customer. And after the initial setup, it would greatly reduce the time that you would have to maintain the servers and whatnot. Cloud infrastructure map, why I chose Office 365, Power BI, AWS S3 Glacier, and Exchange for the productivity. Um, it's pretty self-explanatory for those. I mean, you need Office 365 for business apps, Power BI as well. S3 Glacier is kind of like that nice premium item. It can archive 1 terabyte of data, and it's like 0.04 cents per gigabyte per month. So it's not that expensive at all for archiving and backing stuff up. And then Microsoft Exchange, you need an email. Windows OS, you don't really need in a small business to go with Linux environments unless you're trying to be super cheap, but Linux is more complex and that can be harder for an IT administrator, thus making it more expensive. Why bother do that when you can just use the baked-in Intune with Windows? You can also utilize single sign-on with AWS IAM and Microsoft Azure. And Azure AD. They can come baked in together with AWS, so you can have single sign-on work with Azure AD and Microsoft Azure and AWS IAM. And then the third-party apps, I have a bunch of different ones that they can interchange with. Um, I do think that this is way more valuable for a small business because if you really do look at it, as I said, you know, we go back to the on-premises cost of operations for a small business buying extremely expensive servers every few years is just not in the cards, and so they're more likely to buy cheaper, probably sunsetted servers that are prone to get hacked by hackers rather than just using infrastructure as a service from AWS where they kind of have that safety blanket where it's secure, and they also have the ability to call for help with AWS, and there's also kind of like that security blanket of AWS's defense as well. So overall, that's personally why I chose all of this. It's super cheap for them per year. It's cost effective, way more cost effective than what they're doing. And let me know if you want to pick my brain or have any questions. Thank you.